Hey, what's up guys? This is week 19, book 19, and this week's book is Orphan X by Gregg Hurwitz. Now, for those of you who haven't read this book, it's a great assassin, secret agent sort of book. It's like Jason Bourne, James Bond, John Wick, all rolled into one. And it follows a guy called Evan Smoke, or Orphan X, through his journey of, once being this highly regarded assassin secret agent for the Orphan program until his handler, Jack Jones, died. And then he's gone rogue for the last few years, living out his life in amongst the real world and hiding in plain sight from the Orphan program. They obviously are trying to track him down to get rid of him, as he has a lot of sensitive information in his head, and he's this trained assassin living in the real world, so they obviously don't want that to be out in public. But what he does is he actually does pro bono work now. He's got unlimited funds, all this crazy stuff, of course he does, and he has a phone where people call him and tell him when he's in trouble. Only one person can have the number at any time. They then give it to the next person and have to forget about it, and the next person needs to be in danger and he goes and tries to help them. So that's sort of the premise of the story and how it starts. But I guess what I'd like to talk about in this is my key takeaway being the comedic performances that are in the story around his inability to interact with normal people in everyday life. So as I said, he's hiding in plain sight with the rest of the world. On one hand, he's this hardcore secret assassin who can do pretty much everything. He's MacGyver whenever he touches anything. He's John Wick when it comes to killing people. He can do everything, right? This guy can do anything he wants. He's got all the skills. But then on the other hand, he sucks it into personal relationships. After all his life of being an orphan underneath Jack Jones, his handler, the only person who knew he was alive, he hasn't had all this experience and interpersonal skills. For instance, the single mom with her young son, the old lady who lives in the apartment building whose family won't come and visit her, the building management meetings that he has to attend whilst also having to try protect all these people and kill all these other guys going on. And at one point in the book, he has to babysit this young kid who gets his grubby paws all over his pristine fridges and bench tops and then makes his samurai sword fall off the wall. But all these moments are very good. They cut tension in the book. They add this layer of humility to the character who's got all these perfections in one side of his life but then sucks at the other one. And what's really good is that we as normal humans are probably okay handling, kids and neighbors and friends and family, but then obviously have no idea about his assassin skills. So yeah, it's just a really good way of writing a story, You're having these two separate parts of this character development where on one side he's this amazing assassin with everything that he has, and on the other side he sucks at interpersonal skills. And this sort of technique has worked really well in the MCU, especially when you look at movies like the Thor series. When you look at the first couple of Thor movies to the Thor Ragnarok and you see how much more effort they put into the comedic performances in Thor Ragnarok, you start to realize how important these pieces are to help telling a story, because as the audience we want to feel engaged in the heavy drama action side, but we also need that reprieve and that ability to relate to the characters inside the book or the movie itself. And Thor is a great example of where they probably did it wrong in the first movies and then got it absolutely right in Thor Ragnarok. In this book they do the same thing, and Gregg Hurwitz is really good at, making you believe in these characters and understand them in a way that you couldn't if it was just high tension all the time. Another great thing about this book is that it is a series, and there's 4 books I think and 2 short stories, and I've read a couple of the books now and started the 3rd one recently. But to have a really good series you need to have a really good world build. Take for instance John Wick. John Wick's world building is part of the reason that movie series is so good. That whole assassin world that sits above our real world, that's what they do really well in this Orphan X series. They have our world that we know, everything that we do, and then above it they have this layer of the Orphan program that sits above it, and it allows you to connect the worlds real easily and make that connection to make it seem real, that it could possibly happen over and above our world in this dark world that we would know nothing about. But it also adds in other characters and other storylines that just make it so much more interesting. He has his gun guy, he has his fake documents girl, he has his handler Jack Jones, and he has all these other characters that are supporting, that help build this world out and allow you to really, dive into it and get a part of it and really understand what it's about, but also have that connection to the real world because it is just built on top of of layers of our own world and existence that we live in currently. So yeah, I think it's been a really well-written book by Gregg Hurwitz. He's done a great job in writing this book. I really do think it will become a movie or a TV series eventually. It definitely needs to be. It's perfect for it. But I think that if you are looking for a different book to read, something a little bit out there, it's got a great storyline, it's got a great world building, the comedic performance inside of it are brilliant. The way he loses it at the young boy who, you know, gets in there and puts his grubby hands everywhere and drops his sword off the wall is just brilliant. And you can relate to it really well because, you know, we've all been there, we've had kids in our apartments or whatever it is, and you know what he's going through, but you have the skills to deal with that. But then when you see him as an assassin and doing all those stuff, you have no idea what he's doing there. He's crazy and can do anything he wants. So yeah, it's just this really good way of breaking up the tension, but also allowing it to be a lot more believable. So anyway, we'll leave it there. Those are my takeaways from this book. I highly recommend this book. It's a great read. Gregg Hurwitz is an amazing author, and I really thoroughly enjoyed this book. And I've obviously, like I said, I've already read the part 2 and I've started on part 3. So I'll get back to those books later on down the track. And so next week we have 21 Lessons from the 21st Century by Yuval Harari. Another great book of his. Can't wait to get into this one, but we'll talk about that next week. Otherwise, if you like the video, give us a thumbs up, guys, and hit subscribe and the notification bell if you want to see all the future videos. And I look forward to seeing you there. Cheers, guys. Thanks.